Hi, this is Rudy Jones of Palmetto State Baseball.com. Welcome to That Was the Week That Was in South Carolina College Baseball for February the 16th through the 22nd. As I do this each week, time permitting, I hope to look back at some of the things that went on in South Carolina College Baseball this week and look ahead a little bit to what's going on in the coming week. One of the big things that went on this week was on Tuesday, College of Charleston went up to Conway and beat number 6 Coastal Carolina by a score of 4-3. The Cougars beat the Chanticleers for the third straight time and ended a 16-game home winning streak for Coastal. One note in that game, Sam Gjormand, who's a lady, is the general manager of the Cougars baseball program, and she coached first base. Lee Curtis, who had been coaching first base, was moved inside the end of the dugout to help deal with hitters. Lee's a former standout player at the college himself. Played at Eastside High. He was a high school teammate of my friend and former co-worker Chris McMahon. I just like to name drop every now and then. Anyway, Sam went out to first base, did the job of coaching, and after she got back, Scott Eisberg of WCIV Channel 4 in Charleston went out and interviewed her, and let's see if we can play back what she said.
Yeah, that was definitely a different atmosphere than, maybe I had been expecting, but it was a lot of fun. Like I said, next man up, and just excited to be able to be there for my team and my players and my staff. I think it was a great opportunity.
I mean, obviously, everything that you do is going to be the first female to do that. I mean, how much do you take pride in that?
Yeah, it's obviously a really cool, thing to be hearing from some other people now that, as Coach Holbert keeps giving me these opportunities, and I do take a lot of pride in it. I think it's really cool that, he trusts me enough to give me these opportunities to let me represent the program, and I'm really proud to do so.
Hopefully Scott won't sue me for using copyrighted information. I did give him credit, so hopefully that'll be fair use. Anyway, the nice win for the Cougars, nice performance for Sam. On Wednesday, I hadn't noticed something on X. Someone was kind of taking Cougars coach Chad Holbrook to task for using Sam as a coach on the field. I think the person kind of thought that it was more of a gimmick than anything else, but Chad responded with this. Actually, it's her knowledge of the game, her work ethic, and the respect our players have for her that's landed her the job. There are plenty of Hall of Fame coaches out there that didn't play the particular sport they coach. To be blunt, she's earned everything she's got. I think Chad was a little bit upset about that. And maybe not surprisingly, the X post that he responded to had been deleted by the time I found it on Sunday night to try to quote it. Anyway, good news for the Cougars there. Also on Tuesday, South Carolina went up to Spartanburg and beat Wofford 8-2 at Fifth Third Park. Chance for USC and Wofford fans of the upstate to see a good meeting there. Over 4,100 fans were at that game. On Wednesday, as you can tell, I'm just kind of winging it here. South Carolina got a 12-2 win over Gardner Webb. In that game, Will Craddock, a freshman from Hannah High School out of Anderson, he missed the first 4 games for USC with an injury. He came into that game, he went 3 for 3 with 2 walks, and he's been on fire ever since. In the weekend's series in the Salute the Troops event, he homered to lead off the bottom of the first inning against Navy on Saturday. He did the same thing against Air Force on Sunday. He is now hitting 8 for 15, so he's hitting over 500, doing pretty well as he moves along. Speaking of that Gardner Webb game, they had to stop the game after a delay because none of the umpires knew what the count was. They had to go and do a video review of the tape so far of the game to find out what the count was. Now, I cannot believe that none of the 4 umpires had a clicker. Anybody who's been around baseball much knows the umpires have a little handheld device that you can click on the ball, strike out, things like that. This is something they've been doing for over a century probably. I used to have a like a cardboard/paper ball strike detector that you could just manually move the balls and strikes on that to help keep track of it. I can't believe that none of the 4 umpires had a ball strike counter. Anyway, that's the way it goes. One other thing about the Gamecocks on the weekend. On Friday, They got beat by Army by a score of 9-5. They fell behind 4-0, then 9-1 before they made a little bit of a comeback. But one of the notable things was that Josiah Overbeek of Army hit a home run that they measured as 457 feet to right field. That thing traveled so far, it needed 2 stewardesses on it. I don't think it was just, you can't even say it was flight attendants. It was stewardess worthy. But that was pretty impressive to see that going on. Another thing about the Gamecocks, they went 4-1 for the week. But the thing is they lost their second game to a non-Power 4 conference school. They did not go there last season, even though they had a losing record. Now they've already lost 2 games to teams that just from looking at it, that you would think fans would say, hey, they ought to beat them. And there is some truth to that, but also there's also truth to the part of baseball that any team can beat another team on a given day. Given what South Carolina's football program and men's basketball team right now are enduring, USC fans who are hoping for baseball to be a respite from it, right now they're not seeing much of one. Anyway, speaking of Army, after their games in Columbia on Friday and Saturday, they went down to the Citadel and played in Joe Riley Park, and the Bulldogs beat them by a score of 14-8. T.J. Anderson and Zach Hunt hit 3-run homers for the Bulldogs in that game. Even though I thought that Army and the Citadel might have played a bunch in baseball, that was only the second meeting, and the Citadel has won both meetings so far. Good start for Russell Triplett's team so far this year. Looking elsewhere, over at Clemson, Jacob Gerald's hit 4 home runs for the Tigers, who are now 7-0 after their series sweep of Bryant. Clemson's hitting .345 as a team, 135 staff ERA, and they struck out 77 in 60 innings. I think the only thing Tiger fans have to gripe about right now is the TV coverage. Because of the multiple spring sports events going on at the same time, there are going to be several times this year when the Tigers are only going to have a one-camera broadcast. Dominic Listy, who was a standout player for Tigers last year and has won the season after transferring in from, I believe, Indiana State, he mentioned the fact that he was getting ready to, he was at the airport waiting to fly somewhere, hoped to catch the Clemson game, and the one-camera setup just made it impossible to watch. Dom, you should have been growing up when I was. If we'd have had a single camera covering college baseball, we'd have loved it when I was a kid growing up in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Back in those days, you had to wait until the next day to read the score in the newspaper to find out who won a college baseball game. We've come a long way since then. But anyway, that's going to happen several times to Clemson baseball this year and some of the other sports too. One other thing, talking about the olden days when I was a kid, if you grew up in the upstate of South Carolina or the North Carolina area, you remember when North Carolina was having some really good basketball teams in the late 60s, they would actually do a simulcast of home basketball games on the UNC TV, that's public television station, but with no sound. They call it Broadvision. You had to tune in Bill Curry on the radio, and if you're in the Greenville-Asheville area, that was on WMIT out of Black Mountain, and listen to the commentary of the game while you watched a silent video feed. Times have changed a whole lot, and for the positive, I'd say. We can enjoy things like that. Oh, one other little bit of bad news for Clemson. Jacob McGovern, who really came on as a reliever last year for the Tigers, he suffered an elbow injury. He's going to be facing surgery this week. He's going to be lost for the season. Bad luck for the Tigers in that situation. Sorry to hear that happen for them. One thing that the Clemson fans may want to feel like they might be doing better is a little bit better on defense. They've made 10 errors in 7 games. That's more than you would like to do, and I'm sure they're going to work on making that better. That pretty much hits it as far as looking at, a couple of things from North Greenville. Of course, the Trailblazers won 3 games over Erskine this past week. They played the first game in Due West on Thursday. They're supposed to play a doubleheader at Due West on Friday. Because of field conditions, they had to move it to Tigerville, which has turf, and North Greenville won both those games to complete a series sweep. For North Greenville, Josh Fowles has hit 7 home runs in 14 games, and C.J. Dean is not far behind with 6 homers in 14 games. Moving on to other things. Charleston Southern was my Palmetto State Baseball Team of the Week for last week. The Buccaneers got 4 wins last week, including a 3-game sweep of Elon. They're now 7-0. This is the first time in school history that Charleston Southern has started with a 7-0 record. The program was started in 1967. Stan Honeycutt, who used to coach at Liberty High, and T.L. Hanna in Anderson, was the first baseball coach there for the college. It was called Baptist College at Charleston then, for you old-timers. So they're doing good things under second-year coach Carl Kuhn. They got a winning record for the first time since 1996 last year. They're trying to get back-to-back winning records for the first time since 1987 and 88 this year. 7-0 start is good way to get that going. Chandler Twilpo of the Buccaneers set the school record for career RBIs in the second game on Sunday. He hit 6. There's some confusion about how many he has in his career. His stats listed him as having 146 going into Sunday's second game, and he got 6, but the story says he has 149 career RBIs. So he either has 149 or 147 or 152. Either way, he is still the school's all-time RBI leader. Congratulations to him. How about the team rankings for the teams in the state? I do rankings for each of the 33 teams in the state at PalmettoStateBaseball.com every Sunday night. And let's look at Division I. I've got Clemson moving up from second place to first place among NCAA Division I schools. Tigers were 4-0 last week. They 7-0 for the season, and they won all 7 games, obviously. Charleston Southern, I had them as 9th last week, and maybe that was a little bit too low, but I think I had to move them up after their 4-0 record this week. They're 7-0, won 7 straight, so they moved up from 9th to 2nd. Coastal Carolina was first last week, but they suffered 2 losses in 4 games this week. That one to College of Charleston and another one to Illinois by a 14-5 score. Fighting Illini scored 12 runs in the first 2 innings and moved the Chanticleers down to 3rd. Now, Coastal did bounce back good with a win over VCU later Sunday. It was a combined one-hitter for a couple of pitchers, including Darren Horn, who went 6 no-hit innings, allowed an unearned run in that win. South Carolina I have moving down from 3rd to 4th. Again, they had that loss to Army and beat Navy comfortably. Air Force, it was a competitive game, a 4-2 win. I'm sure the Gamecock fans would like to see them playing a little bit better. They lost a lot of the goodwill that they had from that big win over Gardner Webb in the middle of the week with that performance against Army on Friday. But it is what it is. The Citadel I have moving up from 7th to 5th place. They're 4-2 overall. Russell Triplett's got them playing well. I know they enjoyed that win over Army. In 6th place, I have Winthrop. Moved them up from 2 spots from 8th. They were 3-1 this week, including 2 big wins over Morehead State, 10-0 in game 1. A 11-run first inning set them up for a 19-4 win in game 2. Then in game 3, they're up 3-0, got tied at 3-3, and got a walk-off single from Gabe Hansel in Sunday to win that series 3-0 and improve to 5-2 overall. USC Upstate, not really all their efforts, but the play of others, I have them moving down from 4th to 7th. The Spartans had 2-2 week. They scored 17 runs in 2 games, and they're 4-4, so they're really hitting the ball. Henry Zener and Malloy Haney both have 8-game hitting streaks. They've hit stuff in all 8 games for Upstate. Walford, I have moving down from 5th to 8th. They lost that game to South Carolina early in the week. Then on Sunday, they had a big lead early against, I believe it was 5-0 against Northern Illinois. Northern Illinois came back with a pair of 4-run innings and wound up winning 9-6. I've got Walford at 8th place down from 5th. College of Charleston, even though they got that win over Coastal Carolina, they suffered 2 losses. One of them was really lopsided, run rule loss to South Alabama. And they needed a 2-run homer in the bottom of the 9th inning to avoid being swept in the final game of the series on Sunday. The Cougars are 3-5 overall. Presbyterian went 0-4 last week. They're now 2-6. It's been tough going. Amon Dewberry's been one of the few positives for the Blue Hose. He's been hitting the ball pretty well. Among NCAA Division II teams, I got North Greenville staying at number 1. The Trailblazers were 3-0 this past week. That sweep of Erskine. They're now 13-1. Won 3-game winning streak after what was really a puzzling 5-1 loss to King in the series finale the previous weekend. But again, it goes back to, in baseball, sometimes the better team doesn't win every game. Francis Marion, I've got moving up to number 2 from number 3. They went 4-0 last week. They got a nice midweek win over Lander with a squeeze bunt from Will Durrell in the bottom of the 10th inning for a 12-11 to win. It was a seesaw game, a really well-played game. And then they followed that up with a sweep of Shorter. The Patriots are now 13-1. They've won 11 straight games. Got a bunch of guys hitting well on their team, like Durrell, Charlie Bussey, third, and some other guys too. It's they're pretty good. USC Aiken went 3-1 last week, and I got them moving up one spot from 4th to 3rd. They are 11-3. They won 2 out of 3 against Middle Georgia. Lander went 1-3 last week, and all 3 losses were to good teams. They lost that midweek game to Francis Marion, then lost 2 of 3 to North Georgia in a Peach Belt Conference series this past week. They got the middle game, and that was a nice win for them. The Bearcats are now 9-5 and down 2 spots from 2nd to 4th in my rankings. In 5th place, Newberry State there. They were 3-1 this past week, including winning 2 of 3 over Virginia Wise. The Wolves had a chance to tie the final game of the series on Saturday, but could not get that tying run across to missed out on getting a sweep for the second straight weekend. Anderson stayed at 6th. The Trojans went 3-1 this past week. They're 10-4 overall. Had a nice 5-run rally in Game 1 on Saturday's doubleheader at Tusculum to win that game. Braden Harrison gave the Trojans a lead in that game, and they went on to win, but they lost in the second game. Again, they moved up, stayed from 6th, in 6th place. Southern Wesleyan stayed in 7th. They went 3-1 last week, one of the best weeks for the Warriors in a while. They're still 5-9, but they're on the move up. Erskine had 0-4 week. Again, those 3 losses to North Greenville. The Flying Fleet stayed at 8th place. They're 4-11. Coker stayed in 9th place. It's been a frustrating season for Fico Conlon's team. They're 0-5 this past week. Now 1-12. They had a winning record last year, and they were really competitive. Just haven't quite found the right formula yet. They stayed in 9th place after an 0-5 week. UFC Beaufort stayed in 10th place. They went 0-4 this past week. 3-9 overall. They've lost 7 straight games. Benedict got its first win of the season with a win over Lane 16-12 on Sunday. The Tigers are now 1-3. I have them staying in 11th place, though, to get more of a sample size to see if they move up. Claflin went 0-3, lost 3 games by run rule to Columbus State in Peach Belt play. The Panthers are 3-9 overall. They've lost their last 7 games. Jalen Bledsoe's trying to do, it's an uphill battle. The Peach Belt Conference is a good conference. They've got about 5 really, really good programs in there. And to be able to be competitive in that, you've got to have resources to develop players and recruit players and all. So he's fighting hard, and maybe things will turn out better for the Panthers coming up before long. Among NAIA and National Christian College Athletic Association teams, Sparkman Methodist still is number 1. I had them, number 1 is from last week. The Pioneers were 2-2 this past week, and they're 6-6 overall. Bob Jones lost a couple of games at Guilford, both 1-run losses. They fell to 3-6 overall, but I still kept them in second place in that division as far as the rankings. Columbia International stayed at number 3. They got the middle game of the series against Milligan, but still went 1-2 for the week and are 2-17 overall. It's really been a struggle with the new coaching regime. Lost a lot of players from last year. One positive was Colin Ott struck out 8, and I believe it was 4 2/3 shutout innings in that win over Milligan. Voorhees only played 1 game last week. They're now 1-8, and they stayed in 4th place in the rankings. And Morris remained in 5th place at 1-5 overall after a 0-2 week. Among junior college and USCAA, United States Collegiate Athletic Association teams, Forest Arlington Tech had a 2-3 week, but they still stayed number 1 in my rankings. They lost to Brunswick midweek. Then they lost 2 of 3 to Gaston College in what is a usually the series of the meetings that determine the regular season championship in Region 10. This was the first week of Region 10 play. The Stingers lost the first game, won the second game, which is the first game of a doubleheader on Saturday with a 5-2 win to snap Gaston College's 16-game winning streak to open the season. But then the Rhinos came back and won the final game 4-3. FD Tech had the potential tying run on in scoring position in both the final two innings, but could not get it across. So FD Tech had a 2-3 week, 13-5, but still, I think they're the number one team among junior colleges in the state. USC Sumter was 2-0. They won two games they played against USC Union. Both of them were one-run wins, and the Fire Ants of Will Thompson are now 9-2. They had a third game against USC Union rained out on Saturday. USC Union, as I mentioned, was 0-2 last week. They're 8-4 after having a 6-game winning streak snap. They stayed in third place in my rankings. USC Lancaster won 2 of 3 last week. They split a series with USC Salkehatchie. The third game was rained out. The Lancers had a 6-game winning streak snapped in that loss to Salkehatchie in game 2 of their Saturday doubleheader. USC Salkehatchie, Lancaster still at 4 if I did not mention that. USC Salkehatchie is at number 5. They went 1-3 last week, 3-14 overall, stayed in 5th. And 6th place is Denmark Tech, which did not have a game last week. They're going to play at least 4 this coming week. The Panthers are 0-6 in their first season of bringing baseball back since first time since 2004. Well, how about the Palmetto State Baseball Palmetto Pulse of teams, how they're feeling going into this coming week? We'll start in Division 1. Clemson, 4-3, 4-0 overall, 7-0. I think the Tigers got to be feeling really, really good about themselves. Other than the injury to Jacob McGovern to give their bullpen a hit and the need to maybe field it a little bit better, I think the Tigers are really feeling good about themselves right now. Of course, they always know they've got to improve. Nate's have always been doing well. He's hitting 500 for the season. Charleston Southern, I don't know if you can give them enough positives as far as how much of their plus their vibes are. The Pulse, they are 4-0, 7-0 record-setting start. Got to feel really good about that. Coastal Carolina's probably not feeling real hot right now, going 2-2 for the week. They expected to do better than that. Had another game canceled at the Baseball at the Beach tournament. It was the 27th Baseball at the Beach event, by the way. The Chanticleers also got some bad news off the field. Dom Carbone, who got 5 saves last year, was lost for the season. He's going to have elbow surgery and go from there. Positives that Hayden Johnson and Ryan Lynch, I believe his name, Ryan Lynch, I'm sorry, are due back soon. They were a couple of the staff aces out of the bullpen last year. Also this past week, Cameron Flukie, the staff ace, preseason All-America, preseason Sun-Belt Conference Player of the Year, Pitcher of the Year, he missed his start because of issues with an injury. It is not an arm. I believe they said it was a little bit of a muscle pull between his ribs, but hopefully the Chanticleers will get him back soon for that. South Carolina, they went 4-1 last week, but they had another loss to a team that they really feel they shouldn't lose to. Again, Gamecock fans are they're usually with you win or tie, and not too sure about the tie. But as the Clemson series comes up this week, the USC fans can look at that Army loss and the fact that Clemson beat Army 3 times, twice by shutout, and just wonder when things are going to turn around in that rivalry for USC fans. So they're 6-2, but I don't know how excited they are about this. The Citadel, I think their pulse is very high. 4-2, 3-0 week, win over Army. Just the second time they've played ever. The Citadel's now 2-0 against Army. I'm sure they'll let folks, their military brethren, know about that when they get the chance. Winthrop, also I think very positives after those 3 wins over Morehead State, 2 of them by big margins, and then that come from behind win on Sunday. USC Upstate, I think their margins, their pulse is up a little bit because they see their offense is going. They scored 17 runs in a couple of games this past weekend against Western Carolina, or this past week against Western Carolina, and then the game on Sunday against I believe it was New Jersey Tech. I'd have to go back and look at that, but I think that's correct. Wofford, I'd say their vibes are kind of mid-range. Their pulse is sort of just, there. They probably didn't like the fact that they could not hold on to a lead late against Northern Illinois in that loss. But still, they're 5-2. Not a lot was expected of the Terriers by Southern Conference coaches. They picked them to finish 8th in the conference in the preseason poll. So I'm sure at 5-2, they're looking to build on from there and prove some of those other Southern Conference coaches wrong. College of Charleston, even after that big win over Coastal, they had those 2 losses to South Alabama. One of them wasn't particularly close, and they needed a 9th inning home run to win the finale of the series. I know the Cougars are expecting that their record would have been better than 3-5 at this point, but they did get momentum building. Walk-off win on Sunday. We'll see how it goes from there. Presbyterian 0-4 this past week, 2-6. Amon Dewberry has been one of the few bright spots for PC so far. They just have had trouble getting opposing teams out and scoring enough runs for themselves. How about the vibes in NCAA Division II? North Greenville, I think they're very positive. They're 13-1, 5-1 in the conference. They probably are kicking themselves over that loss to King in the previous weekend, but still, they're doing well. Francis Marion, how can you not have a positive pulse if you're on an 11-game winning streak? The Patriots seem to be doing all the things right. They rallied in the final game of the shorter series to win that by a sweep, doing well. USC Aiken also doing well. They're 11-3. I think they're feeling positive about things. They 11-3, 3-1 last week. Lander probably a little bit above average as far as the vibes. Feeling better than they could have. They might wish they could be feeling better. They did lose 3 games last week, but all 3 were to ranked teams, so it's no disgrace to lose that. And they can go on from here, still doing well at 95. Newberry, I think things are going very positive for them. 95. They did lose that finale against Virginia Wise, and they had a chance to tie it, but could not. But still, I think generally vibes are positive. Same thing for Anderson. 10-4 overall. They 3-1 this past week. 1-2 out of 3 against Tusculum. I think they're feeling good about themselves. Southern Wesleyan, best week in a while. 3-1, 5-9 overall, but still they got some positive going. They won a conference series. Erskine, no disgrace to lose to North Greenville. They just really got handled pretty handily in 2 of the 3 games as they lost that. They're probably feeling a little bit down about themselves, but the schedule should ease up a little bit at some point. They've got to hope. Coker's been very frustrated. I know they're 0-5, 1-12. I'd say their pulse is down as far as the excitement. After having such a great season last year, I know they're trying to get things turned around for that. UFC Beaufort's lost his last 7 games. I'd say their pulse is down. Benedict got a win on Sunday, his first win, so I'd say the pulse is pretty good for that. The Tigers aren't playing many games outside of the SIAC this year, and so their overall record is going to show a lot about how they do in the conference. And getting that first win on Sunday, leading into a Monday doubleheader, gives them some positive vibes to go into that. Claflin has lost 7 straight games. Tough to compete in Peach Belt Conference, as I mentioned earlier. I'd say their vibes are down, but they can't give up, can't start keeping their head down. Anthony Hardy had 4 hits for the Panthers on Sunday. Take the positives and do what you can and try to build from there. Among NAI and NCCAA schools, Spartanburg Methodist, I think the vibes are slightly above average. I think they feel good about the fact that they won the final game of their series against Reinhardt, which is a good program. Bob Jones, 3-6. I think that they probably feel like they should have won at least one of those games to Guilford. They're both 1-run losses. One of them they gave the lead late, and they want to do better. They were, I think, 10-29 last year, so they're wanting to hit double figures and come closer to finishing 500. Tillman Patchett had pitched 5 innings in Game 1 of Saturday's doubleheader for the Bruins and only allowed 1 run. So they can build on some things they've done well. Voorhees, I tell you, you've only played 9 games at this point. It's kind of hard to get much of a rhythm going on. They had a weekend series against Wilberforce. It's supposed to be their conference opener in the HBCUAC. It got washed out because of the rain. So I'm sure they're just itching to be able to build a little consistency, get out on the field, and get some repetitions in, and just become more at ease playing. Morris, pretty much the same thing. They've only played 6 games so far. They did play well in one of the games against Montreat. It was a pretty close game. And, they want to build on from what they've had. In junior colleges, Florence Darlington Tech, as I mentioned, 13-5. Most teams would love to have a 13-5 record. FD Tech's used to much better records than that at this point of the season, but they did lose 2 games to a good Gaston College team last week. They get a chance to get back at them later on this season when they'll be playing a 3-game series down in Florence. But I'd say right now the Stingers' vibes are just down, or the pulse is down a little bit on the short term just because of the fact they wanted to win that series so badly. USC Sumter, I think the vibes are up. The pulse is up with the 2-0 series win over USC Union. They've won. They've got a 9-2 record. USC Union, as I mentioned, they're 0-2. They played 2 one-run games against Sumter. A couple things go differently here or there. They could have won one or even both of those games. Still 8-4 is a good record. USC Lancaster had that 6-game winning streak snapped against USC Salkehatchie on Saturday. But still, the Lancers are 8-6. That's a good record at this point of the year. USC Salkehatchie, they're only 3-14, but they did get a win in their final game on Saturday, and that gives them something to build on. Maybe look for a 2-game winning streak, just something modest to keep going. Denmark Tech did not get to play on this past week. Did not have a game scheduled, but they'll be picking it back up this week. How about the week ahead? What's going on? Of course, the big thing is the Clemson South Carolina series. They play Friday night at Founders Park, Saturday at Seger Park in Columbia, and on Sunday at Doug Kingsmore Stadium in Clemson. It always means a lot. Clemson's done very well in this rivalry in the last few years. And whoever wins or loses this series, they've got to make sure that they know that there's a lot of baseball to be played even after this year, even after this week. I mean, you're talking at 40-something games, but roughly 45 games or so still to be played after this series. I know South Carolina fans are looking for something good to happen. When you look at comparative scores and you see what happened to Army against Clemson, the Army versus South Carolina, you kind of wonder. But, it should be some good games down there. I think both teams want to win it. A lot of in-state players, even though they brought in some guys from out of state in both schools. But this means a lot to the fans and the players on this team. Should be a good series. Coastal Carolina has a nice weekend tournament set up. They are playing at the Bruce Bolt Classic in Houston. They'll be playing Texas on Friday night. They'll be playing Texas San Antonio at Saturday afternoon. And then on Sunday morning, they'll be playing Ole Miss. So that's a good test for the Chanticleers. If they have any questions after this past 2-2 week, they'll get some answers next week with the way they go. I've always got the complete state schedule at PalmettoStateBaseball.com. There are a lot of in-state matchups this week. There are about 6 on Tuesday alone, including Morris at Bob Jones for a doubleheader, Voorhees at Columbia International for a doubleheader, Coker at North Greenville, Erskine at USC Beaufort, Francis Marion at Newberry, Presbyterian at Clemson, and Southern Wesleyan at Anderson. I think that's actually 7, isn't it? But there's a lot of good matchups going on in the state. On Tuesday, Wednesday, South Carolina has a home game against Queens. Charleston Southern tries to extend its school record start with a home game against Charleston Southern. Landers at Erskine on Wednesday. Some of the Friday series, Johnson, which is coached by Dave Serrano, former coach at Tennessee. He has built a good program at Johnson. It's a school in Tennessee. The Royals, they play at Spartanburg Methodist this weekend. Winthrop is at home against Maine. Elsewhere, North Greenville is playing Francis Marion in a 3-game Conference Carolina series. 1-2 in my rankings. How about that, huh? We'll see what's going on with that. Elsewhere, Claflin is at Lander. The Citadel goes down to Florida State for a series. And that's kind of the highlights of just the matchups involving state teams. College of Charleston does have a couple of games up at Greenville this week. They're in the First Pitch Invitational at Floor Field. They play James Madison on Friday, and they will be playing Illinois on Saturday. First Pitch Invitational, of course, is primarily for Michigan State. Greenville Drive owner Craig Brown is a Michigan State alum, and he's been bringing the Spartans down here for probably 12 or 13 years to let them kind of escape the snow and cold weather and get ready for the season. And they usually bring some pretty competitive teams down here. That's pretty much it as far as that was the week that was in South Carolina College baseball, and a little bit of a look ahead. You can always find daily scores and schedules at PalmettoStateBaseball.com. I've got them on the calendar. I give updates on X, formerly known as Twitter, under the handle of Palmetto Base. And if you want to get involved in discussions of college baseball in the state, not just your team, visit the Palmetto State Baseball group on Facebook. I'd like for it to be a spot, kind of like a community bulletin board, if you will, where folks can talk about college baseball in the state, not just their team, but the other teams that are out there. Even, I'll even accept talk about the Braves and minor leagues too. Of course, one thing about the Braves, there's a lot of questions about what the TV situation is going to be for this year, with FanDuel Sports Network giving them up. The Braves had their spring training game on Sunday televised on Gray TV, which is Palmetto Sports Entertainment Network in South Carolina. The station is in Greenville, Columbia, Charleston, and Florence Myrtle Beach area. Going to be about 15 preseason games. I don't know what's going to happen later on, but again, that's something to look forward to. But for now, I've been talking about college baseball. It's my passion. I hope you enjoy what I try to do for the game of college baseball in South Carolina. I'm not doing it to get rich. You wouldn't believe how little money ad clicks make at my website, but that's fine. I'm not doing it to get rich. I want to publicize the game because I love college baseball. Anyway, I hope you've had a great weekend. If you're a hockey fan, I know you USA fans enjoyed that win over Canada for the Olympic gold medal. And if not, try out hockey sometime. It's a fun sport. But for now, this is Rudy Jones of PalmettoStateBaseball.com saying, Jesus loves you. Have a great week.